Hey, I'm trying to live until I die. Come connect, you know it's a lewd state of mind. Yeah, yeah, talking traveling. If you wanna fly, fitness and finance, living a better life, keep it raw, no filter, living with no limit. Thank you for tuning in. Come on, let's get it.
Welcome to Lewd State of Mind. Rob and Joe from Chapel Street Cellars. Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you for having us.
It's been a long time in the making, but we've got you here finally.
Exactly, yeah.
And it has to be a Sunday morning, obviously, because that's about the only time you guys get off.
Yeah.
Chapel Street Cellars. Tell me about it. You guys have been in Chapel Street for how many years?
Since 2007, so 16 years.
16 years. So you guys are a bit of an icon in Chapel Street, aren't you?
Well, we've seen a lot.
We have.
And I'm sure we're going to talk about that very shortly. So, Chapel Street Cellars, what do you do? Tell us what you do.
What do? We sell drinks.
Alcoholic beverages are the main part of your staple.
Yeah, but we also, we're also a bar, and we have a beer garden out the back. So
for those that don't know, the beauty about your establishment is that you can walk in, you've got a whole row of fridges full of anything and everything, alcoholic, non-alcoholic, and you can pick a beer out and you can sit in your garden bar, or you can sit out the front on the street and watch the circus of Chapel Street, that it is. And you can even bring your own food if you want. That's correct?
That's right. Yeah.
That's the way your license is set up. Can you explain to me what sort of license you hold? On license, off license? I don't understand. Can you explain that to me, Joe?
It's called a general license. So it's like a pub, any pub you see, but in reverse. They used to traditionally have a bottle shop near the doorway or somewhere. We've done that in reverse. So we're a bottle shop, a bigger bottle shop, and we used to be a small pub area, sit down area. Now we've extended to the beer garden, which is very large, as you know. So it's basically a general license.
And the great thing, as you said, about that beer garden is that you wouldn't know it was there.
No.
It's very unassuming. So the shops in Chapel Street, it looks like the back of somebody's house, doesn't it? You walk through the store and you don't know what you're going to get until you get there.
No.
And a lot of people I've taken there go, wow, didn't know that this even existed. And it's like one of the other bars there that you go through a fridge door out the back to a cocktail bar. Yeah. We won't mention their name. We don't want to give them any free advertising. But
they've just changed their name, so it would be a waste of time.
So just an amazing setup and very comfortable. So what do you think the secret to your success is? Is it just the knowledge that you have for the products that you sell? I mean, because anybody can run a bar, yeah? Yeah.
I think that's been our biggest compliment, that we know what we're selling, and a lot of places the staff come and go very quickly and then they're not trained. And in all fairness, establishments don't necessarily have the resources to train their staff because they are very transient. So between us, we've got about a good 40 odd years training that and experience. As Rob has told you, he's a sommelier and I'm a wine educator. So we kind of know what we're doing a little bit. And over the last 16 years, we've learnt a lot. It's when you start to discover new products, you realise just how little you do know.
Yeah, we had that recently.
Yeah.
So we've gone back to, we started as a wine-focused bar.
That's where the cellars comes from, basically, doesn't it? Yeah.
And we put in equipment so that you could taste the wine at its peak condition, and it wasn't left in a bottle, and some bars do, unfortunately, to get a little bit oxidised. We started off with wine, so we were very knowledgeable about wine. We'd been on our holidays, we'd go to wine regions, and we'd go around and talk to the producers and try the stuff on site and learn more about the regions themselves, wine regions. And then we just moved away from that. We moved into craft beer, and cider took over.
Yep.
Cider had a little burst, and then craft beer followed on from that, and we kept going with the craft beer. But now we've gone back to the wine. There's so much that's changed. Like all of the natural wines, all of the people who are making almost homebrew producers who buy some grapes and squash them in their shed, and then they release their own wines, and then they take on different vineyards, and they're almost like they're little artisans that are scattered around.
So they're like the craft brewers, aren't they? So
they've changed completely. There's wines out there that structurally they're interesting. They're not like a standard Riesling or a standard Shiraz or something. They've put in some Chardonnay, or they've done something organic with it. So they're biodynamic. They've sort of fermented it under the ground, or they've done something different.
Just trying to do something different to get different flavour profiles.
Yeah.
Well, let's go back. Let's jump back to your qualifications, because as you say, you're both qualified. You, Joe, you said you're a wine educator. Please explain, and please explain how you got those qualifications.
Well, I studied at TAFE. Did the studies in making wine and learning pretty much a lot about wine. And having said that, that's when I realised how little I did know. And with each new year and the new trends, I discover how little I do know. Even after 16, 20, 30 years now, there's still so much to learn and so much to discover. And in my earlier days, before having the shop in Sydney, I used to teach wine appreciation. I had a 6-week course, and that was a lot of fun. It was interesting. I used to do corporate events. I used to do charity events, and the 6-week course was a 2 hours per night. 2 hours per night. So we'd go through different whites, reds, fortifieds, different sparklings, different styles of wine. As I said, the course, each night was 2 hours long, and it was 1 hour lecture and 1 hour tasting.
I bet you they couldn't wait for the 1 hour tasting.
Well, this is what I was just about to say.
Let's just get that hour out of the way.
Once I noticed that people were sleeping, like there'd be suits and people coming in after work, all dressed up straight from work. So they'd had a long day, but, the first hour it would be their little sleep time. So I learnt very quickly to make the lecture half an hour and the tasting part of it an hour and a half, and that was more enjoyable for them. Quite often the opening of a bottle or a cork popping would spring them back to life, and they go, oh, yeah, this is what I'm here for. So, I discovered very soon that a lot of people aren't really interested in the process of how things are made. Some were, but generally they were there for the drinking and the tasting aspect of it.
Yeah, well, I suppose as long as they appreciate what you're telling them and what they are tasting, they don't really have to know the mechanics of it, do they?
The educational part became a sort of a sideline. It became not a sideline. It became morphed into the tasting part of it, which was more effective. Yeah.
In your opinion, has wine had peaks and troughs over the course of the last couple of generations with regards to popularity?
So many trends, so many. And I guess going back to your initial question of what makes us different is that we've learnt to decipher the trends, and we've learnt to go with them. Like people come in and they go, oh, I'm going to open a wine shop and I'm just going to sell this. And I think, oh, that's not a really good idea. And you want to tell them that that's suicide and that you're just going to have to go with the flow. Over years, in our first couple of months, we set up a Shiraz challenge, and we were focused on red wines and really lovely red wines, and then, as Rob said, then cider hit, then beers hit. And Victoria sort of leads the Australian trends. We follow America and England and New Zealand to a great degree. So we've followed all the other world trends, but Victoria leads Australia. So things happen in Victoria first.
I did not know that.
So we saw it all at the very, very start, which was a really great wave to be on. But as I said, we had to follow what was happening. We couldn't just stick to what we knew and say we're just going to sell red wine or we're going to do lots of really good red wine. It might have worked as a concept, but probably wouldn't have survived as a business.
Well, I think as a business, you can't just pick one thing and go, we're just going to stick with that.
No.
I mean, in business, it's good to be good or great at one thing,
Yeah.
but you've got to diversify. And,
Yeah.
and obviously, as you're saying, with the way alcohol trends, and we've seen a big trend lately in no alcohol, low alcohol
Yes,
products,
yes.
that part of the market's just gone bunter.
Yep.
So yeah, and as you say, the good thing about it being in Victoria, if you're at the start of that wave,
Yep.
you're at the best point. You're
Yeah.
at the best point because you can see it peter out and the new wave come, can't
Yeah.
you?
Yeah.
So Rob, your qualifications, a sommelier. Explain to our listeners exactly what a sommelier is.
Well, a sommelier generally is inside a restaurant or a high-end, like they tended to be in the high-end restaurants, and they would advise the customers on, from a wine list, what would match with the food that they'd ordered. And so they could say, if you have this steak, these are the sort of wines that will suit that. The way that I approached it, because I come from being a career as a business analyst and a project manager, so I always took the view that the sommelier is sort of the general manager of the wine list.
Yep.
Within an organisation. Some of those restaurants have multi-million-dollar wine lists, and what they do is people become a sommelier, and a sommelier is a person who knows a lot about wine, where it's grown, what it tastes like, the regional differences, and they can try and, as I said before, pinpoint
Yep.
taste and try and match the customer's taste with the wine. But they're also part of the business, and that's the bit that was always missing in both the education that I got.
Was the management side you're
was
talking
the
about?
management side of it, because if you're running a $1 million wine list, you can't just keep buying the things that you like, and that's what happens with a lot of these kids. They get given the job, they go to the training, and the training's all about the taste, and then they learn what their taste is, and they want to buy more of that wine for their boss and whatever, but margins and stock turnover and all of those aspects don't sort of come into the thing. So that's what the way that I approached it was.
Yep.
Was more of a managerial side of it.
Well, so you could oversee everything and have control.
Yeah, well, you're trying to make money for your boss. You're not trying to.
Well, you're trying to
indulge
sell.
yourself.
Yeah, you're trying to sell wine, and you're trying to sell good wine to people that appreciate it and to do your job and to match it.
Yeah.
So, a sommelier, is there a higher qualification than a sommelier in the wine industry?
According to a sommelier, probably not. But
So we are talking about this
but there
because
are
I've seen.
there are things called masters of wine. They've
Is that the
created
next-
these other organisations. It's not a next step. It's just a different organisation that has a different
Doing a different thing.
purpose.
So I've seen documentaries, I'm pretty sure, about sommeliers where they spend days and days and weeks and months tasting wine. They get up, they taste wine, they spit wine, and they know where the wine comes from, what region, and all the nuances about it by just smelling it or just one taste. That's your qualification.
I didn't go that far down there. Like you start to learn about it. You become
Yep.
a sommelier. You can go to higher levels of being a sommelier.
Okay, that's what I was trying to ascertain. I'm not taking
I'm not a
anything.
pinnacle sort
I'm
of-
not taking anything away from your qualifications at all, because you're a very smart man. The one thing my wife and I absolutely love about coming down to see you guys is that we'll walk out of there knowing something that we didn't already know. And I think it was like a prime example the other week. We were talking about refrigeration. Now, I didn't know that refrigeration was actually invented by an Australian man. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's correct.
Hey, Mav, can you just look up, Google search the inventor of refrigeration? Yeah, as I said, every time we go in there, we learn something, whether it's about alcohol or politics or refrigeration, which is fantastic. I mean, you guys are just amazing. Now, talking about Chapel Street, we all know it's crazy. People love doing chaplets, and you could sit and just have a drink and just watch the craziness all night,
Yeah.
depending on the time of day.
Yeah.
What's the craziest thing you've seen down Chapel Street?
Oh God, what is the craziest thing I've seen?
Well, here we go. So I'll stop you there. So James Harrison, he was an Australian, and he was the first to patent the refrigeration or the refrigerator. Wow,
Yeah.
that's amazing.
Of all the inventions, that one has probably had the most impact.
Yeah,
So
and
more than Hill's hoists or
Yeah.
any of those other things. Or Wi-Fi is pretty well up there, but
it's
by
the
same
least
token-
known.
The bag in the
It's
box.
the least known, isn't it? Is it, or is it just me?
Yeah.
That's
No,
it's not well known
No,
that an
no,
Australian.
The people who are from Geelong area,
Yep.
the people there wanted to create a museum. They have for years, and just doesn't get off the ground. And yet it's a thing that has allowed humanity basically to move. Refrigeration and air conditioning all are based on what he discovered.
Exactly. The benefits from just refrigeration. We're not talking about air conditioning.
Yeah.
You know, to store food and to
Yeah.
store food longer, and just to have all these options.
Yeah.
And from that, you're looking at freezing. So you've got a whole different scope of just amazing.
Yeah.
Anyway, getting back to
Craziest thing
crazy
we've seen on
Chapel Street.
Oh, there's just so many. We used to do little vignettes on social media, and we'd say this has been brought to you by Chapel Street Cellars. It's another chapter of Chapel Street Cellars, the musical, which we vow to write after retirement, and I'm sure a lot of people going back over the 16 years will recognise things that we talk about. We've had the homeless Dave used to ride a pretend horse down Chapel Street. He'd have this like this kiddie horse's head on a stick, on a broomstick, and he'd ride that against the traffic. He'd do little things like that. Chap laps have just been an iconic thing where at about 10:30 on the dot you'll see all these amazing different types of cars from different car clubs just driving up around and around and around and up and down Chapel Street.
That's an amazing sight, and it's a
Yeah.
completely free show, isn't it?
Yeah, well, it is.
Unbelievable.
That's it. It's all free. And as you said, as we were talking before, some people like to sit in the backyard and be anonymous and quiet and have a chat. Others prefer to sit on the street, on our sidewalk, on our footpath seating, simply because it is a show. And they say, no, we want to people watch. And
It's
anything-
a perfect place to do it,
That's
isn't it?
Yeah.
And just to tell our listeners, you're up the Windsor end
Yep.
of Chapel Street.
Yep.
So the beauty about that is that my wife and I are 5 minutes walk away from your place,
Yeah.
which everybody says, "Oh, that's dangerous." And I
Yeah.
say, "Yes, it is. It is very dangerous, but I wouldn't want to live anywhere else.
Yeah.
It's an unbelievable location.
It's a lot of fun.
It is. It's crazy. It's crazy." This podcast is brought to you by Holy Shirt Australia. Holy Shirt Australia are 100% online. They're Australia's largest no minimum custom print and embroidery company. All their services are completed in-house and they can deliver all orders promptly and professionally. They like to keep it simple and straightforward, so they offer cool stuff that can be custom printed or embroidered to your liking. They have an easy-to-use online designer to build your custom apparel from the comfort of your home or office. They offer pricing that reflects your individual order, and remember, they are no minimum on all their products. They deliver what the customer expects when they expect it. They've got over 1,500 products ready for you to custom print or embroider today, right now. So head to holyshirt.com.au for all your custom clothing requirements. So we were talking about famous people that frequent your establishment. We're not going to name names, obviously, but part of the Chapel Street and Chap Lap show is the famous people that are around, and a lot of them like to frequent your establishment, I've heard.
We've had a few. We've had, and as you said, we won't mention any names.
No.
We've had footballers. We've had TV people. We've had the odd musician. It's all been part of the colour and glamour of what Chapel Street is and why it attracts people there. The people come from all over the world to see the famous shopping strip. It's probably one of the most famous, probably top 5 shopping strips in the world. So
I did not know that. Is it up? Is it?
It's pretty
it's up
high.
there.
It's pretty famous. It's very well known. It's got a very European flair too, which is quite nice. It's Australian in many ways, but it's also quite varied in who you see.
Well, let's talk about Chapel Street and COVID, because like any shopping precinct, it got hit pretty hard.
Yep.
There are a lot of empty shops, but the thing that I've noticed about Chapel Street is that the recycle rate is very high. So there's one business fails, another business comes in.
Yep.
And we often walk past businesses, my wife and I, and say, how long are they going to last? Like a cookie shop. Like, how many cookies do you have to sell to pay the rent on Chapel Street? But I think it's just testament to the resilience of that street and the traders in there. Now, you've been there 16 years. You know a lot of traders. You've seen traders come and go. What do you think the formula to success is?
We call it surviving. And that cookie shop is an amazing little business there. It opened the first week of COVID, and we thought, wow, that's very brave. But all you could smell on the street was cookies and Uber drivers' motorbikes. That's about it. So they've done very well, and kudos to them for doing that and being so bold. I don't really know what is our success. I guess you have to be malleable enough to change with the times and change with the trends and listen to your patrons, support your patrons. What we don't like as wine educators and sommeliers is the snob factor of that industry, and how people will look down on you because you don't know the product or you don't know how to drink a wine or whatever. We've never allowed that into the way we do business. We've always been more like guides for people that come in, like yourselves and your lovely wife. And it has been with an educational bent. We've always put that on it. And we've had people come back and thank us that the wine they chose to have with their dinner went perfectly with their Asian meal or whatever. And that's the highest compliment to us, because that's what we're there for. We're not there to be snots or snobs. We're there to help people. We're there to provide a service. And I guess that's probably what's pulled us through, more than anything else, that we're listening to people.
Well, as you say, it's the education.
Yeah.
I can go in there and I can say to you, hey, we're going to go get Thai. What do you recommend?
Yeah.
And you give me an option, or you give us an option, then we make a decision. And 9 times out of 10, 10 times out of 10, it's just amazing.
Yeah.
And we rely on you guys, which is the beauty about it. And I hope a lot of other customers do as well too.
Yep.
We were talking earlier about trends,
Yes.
about alcohol trends.
Yeah.
We know now that a lot of no and low alcohol products are on the market, flooding the market.
Yep.
It seems to be the new go-to. You've obviously seen that. You've adapted to it, as you say you have to as a business.
Yep.
What else do you see happening, and how do you stock your shelves? How do you make the decisions to put the product on your shelf?
Well, it comes from both sides. It comes from what customers ask for, but it also comes from what people are making, and they're recognising that there's a vacancy in what's being offered, and some crazy guy will produce something and it'll be really popular all of a sudden, like the seltzers, which I keep telling our customers it's just soda water. They just made this big spike in the market, and they're tapered off now. So
Can you explain to me what's in a seltzer apart from soda water? Has it got alcohol in it?
Yes,
Yeah.
they're usually some of them now are very high alcohol. Before they weren't. They were about 4%, weren't they? 5%.
Yeah.
Yeah. But all the young kids are drinking them because they thought they were a low sugar,
Low carb.
Low carb.
It's health. It's
Yeah.
there's health and sustainability, and there's all kinds of things that are coming into the equation now that are
These woke
Getting-
suggestions are coming,
well, you can,
seeping into the market.
I don't know about woke. I don't understand that word, but it's just
A lot of people don't understand it, Rob.
No.
It doesn't. I mean, our generation. Why should we need to understand it?
Yeah.
I mean,
we've already killed the planet. So
let's just hope Maverick leaves it in a better state than what we
Well,
do.
yeah, we haven't done them any great service.
So another thing that I just noticed today and has been in the news today is that alcohol, or the price of beer has gone up.
Yeah.
Now they're saying like $1.50 per slab.
Yeah.
It goes up. You were saying goes up every year
yeah,
on
there's
year.
indexation based on inflation.
Yep.
And if inflation's high,
Yep,
the indexation's going to be high.
exactly.
Just like politicians' wages get indexed.
Perfect.
Who's
Perfect example.
Yeah.
I think we said we weren't going to talk politics, so
Well,
that
there's no
would.
politics. This is a wage question.
There's a lot of people up in arms. You hear it on the news today. The bogan community are just up in arms about this price hike. But as you say, it's inflationary. It was always going to happen.
Yeah.
So
It's
that
a windfall for the government, though. I mean, if you look around the world at the price of alcohol, in some countries it's a matter of a few cents on top of the manufacturing cost.
Yep.
In Australia, it's horrific.
Oh,
The taxes on alcohol in this country are just insane.
so I'm just reading an article today. Canberra is actually probably the cheapest Australian city to go for a beer, but they were talking about Australia on a whole. Okay, so Australians now pay the fourth highest beer tax in the world, behind Japan. I wouldn't have thought. Well, actually, the Japanese drink beer like it's going out of fashion, don't they? And like me, drinking Asahi, thanks to our sponsors that we're trying to get on board. So Australians now pay the fourth highest beer tax in the world, behind Japan, Finland, and Norway.
Yeah.
Well, you can understand Finland and Norway because they've got a good health system. So that's great. That's fine.
But it's all right if that money goes back into the health system.
Yes, exactly.
Not into general revenue.
Yep.
And that's what happens in Australia. It all gets thrown in.
Into
and-
one pot
Yeah.
and just stirred around.
Yeah.
It's going to keep happening. Cigarettes.
Preventative measures to counteract the impact of alcohol.
If we're talking about the amount of tax that the government takes from alcohol sales, do you know if there's any percentage that goes back into education and anything to do with alcohol
No,
related?
They've got a model where everything goes back into general revenue.
Yeah.
And then based on their policies and the government of the day, they just allocate money to these services. And if there's not enough money,
It doesn't happen.
it doesn't happen. Whereas presumably it should be that, but it's like roads and road taxes. It's
Yep.
like the money that motorists give to the government doesn't go back to fix the roads. It goes into general revenue, and then they sort of find some money to fix a road every now and then.
Do we think there needs to be more money spent? Yeah.
I was just about to say,
Okay.
Alcohol is the most damaging drug in Australia. It causes, like, you think that heroin and ecstasy and ecstasy and ice. Now, ice is a massive problem. You think that they are problematic to Australia. They might be here, whereas on a scale, whereas alcohol's way up here.
Yep.
It does more damage to Australian lives on the roads and everywhere else, domestic violence, than any other drug. So
Does that, as bar owners
Yeah.
and licensee, does that have any sort of impact on you mentally with regards to what you do for a living?
it does to a degree, but we're very conscious of being responsible servers of alcohol.
Well, you're bound by law, obviously.
Yeah, well, we are, but we're bound by conscience as well.
Yeah.
So
Because there's a lot of rogue traders out there that don't adhere to the rules.
Yeah, there are. And we sell packaged liquor and we sell liquor on premises. So we're very conscious of what we're doing. We've had people where we've barred. We've had people where we've cut them off. If Rob brings you out a glass of water, you know that you're approaching the cut-off.
Don't mess with Rob.
Period.
Don't mess with.
So,
The interesting fact about your establishment is that you've got this wide age range of clientele.
Yep.
You've got these young kids, 18,
yep.
just starting to learn all about this drinking pub culture. And then you've got old farts like me
Yep.
that just want to be told the right wine for their meal.
Yeah.
So you're dealing with a gamut.
We negotiate all through that, yeah.
And that's on a weekly basis now. Obviously, weekends are busier than any other time.
Yes.
What have you found lately or recently with the youth, the drinking youth? Has there been a shift? Has there been a change?
Well, the drinking youth are more health conscious, as we were saying, so they're looking for things that are more attuned to their lifestyle and their health needs. They're also taking a lot more drugs. So we've had to negotiate that, and we've been told in training sessions with our liquor accord that you've got to be wary of providing a lot of water, and you notice when they drink the sugary drinks, you know that they're taking drugs as well. And just be very mindful of that. You can't stop them because they'll do it in the loo, and you can't have cameras in the loo, of course.
But leading up to COVID, before COVID, there was a trend that was really going down into the low alcohol sort of, or mid-strength
Yep.
sort of market. But now that these super seltzers from Suntory or whatever, you can name them, but these 196, which is 6% alcohol, and the Strong Zero, which is 9% alcohol,
Yep.
they taste like a soft drink. Well, to me, they taste like antacid.
Cocktail, yeah.
Like,
Well, we used to call it lolly water back in the day.
yeah, but they don't get it. They drink several of them, and you've got to say, look,
These are really strong.
These are really strong,
Yep.
and the alcohol, you don't notice it now, but you will.
Yeah. They
When
call it
when
the freight
hits you,
train because
and-
it comes up and hits you in the back of the head. Yeah.
Exactly, and you know, you've got to do your best to help when people are on your premises, and you say you can't have too many of these things because
Yeah. Well, see, that's responsible because a lot of places would just, all they're worried about is sales. They're just doing the sales.
Well, we're not doing that for that.
No, exactly.
We've had other lives and
Yeah.
other businesses and whatever. This is it's not a hobby, but it's a thing that we do because we like the drinks, and what we try and do is provide a variety of drinks so that people can find something that suits themselves. And
Well, as we've mentioned, I mean, your shop is just chock-a-block full of anything and everything, which is amazing because there's always something new. Yeah. And what I love about it is that I know that during the week you've researched products and you've picked a product to put on your shelf or in your fridge based on what your clients may or may not want. You know, which is
mostly
brilliant.
you though.
Well, Rob was saying the other day that he got a new hazy IPA for me,
Yeah.
and somebody had brought it all.
Yeah.
Oh, the selfish bastard!
You keep pushing him and pushing him and pushing him.
No, as I said, you guys are amazing. Look, it's great, as you say, about the responsibility that you guys have to educate and to manage. And that's what makes your establishment amazing. Buckfast, as you can see, I've got the sponsors T-shirt on. Official T-shirt. We're trying to get some Buckfast sponsorship as well too. Now, so a lot of people don't know A, about Buckfast, and B, that you guys are the Australian New Zealand distributors of it.
Yep.
And can you tell me what is it and where it's from, Rob?
Well, we've been the distributors for quite a few years now. But again, it's one of those things that was a customer request.
Oh, really?
It was a customer request.
Would that customer have been
Well, it wasn't a
Scottish?
request.
He was British. I don't remember him being Scottish.
What's the origin of Buckfast?
Buckfast began in France.
Really?
Buckfast
So it's a French
began-
product?
It's made by French monks.
Right.
So those French monks got kicked out of France as part of some religious war there's always religion's always linked to war, I guess. So they got thrown out, and they went across to England, took over an old abbey and reset it up in the 1800s, and then got kicked out again, and then sort of...
These guys sound like great tenants, don't they?
Well, if you look at the bottle, there's the abbey on there.
Oh, it is too. Just
first
for our
Abbey,
viewers, that's the Buckfast bottle. So if you're looking for it on the shelf, that's it. So it's a
The first
it's a
Abbey was
tonic
there,
wine.
yeah.
Sorry,
No, the first abbey was there in the year 1000 and something.
wow.
Yeah,
It's
that's
that
the
old.
site of it. Well, that's not that old, but in the 1800s, that's when the French monks came over and took over that
Okay.
that building.
So the abbey was
and
Yep.
it had become somebody's house, and then they changed it back into a monastery.
Yep.
But yeah, so it's a unique drink. It's like it's a fortified wine. So fortified wines are a category of wine where they add some spirit to a normal wine to bring up the alcohol content.
And what sort of spirit would that be?
Just a basic. From these ones, it would be a spirit made from grapes.
Okay.
But they would have distilled it rather than fermented it. So
Okay,
you
and
can make
that's-
alcohol in two ways. You can
Grains or
ferment it
Yeah.
and let yeast do its job.
Yep.
Or you can take an alcoholic thing that's been fermented and put it through a still and actually increase
Right.
the alcoholic
alcohol.
volume.
that's a whole nother
'Cause it's a
discussion
whole-
for another
yeah.
podcast. We'll get to that.
But that's a mistella. So it's actually grape juice. They've crushed some grapes.
Yep.
They haven't fermented them. There's no yeast involved, and all they've done is they've got some alcohol that they've distilled, and they stick that in it,
Right. So it's like alcoholic grape juice.
and then some herbs and some other things that make it sort of
A health tonic.
health
A
tonic.
health tonic.
Except that health tonic has as much caffeine as Red Bull.
Wow, I did not know that. Unbelievable.
Mm.
It tastes amazing, and it's very unassuming as well too. So it's not as nosy as you'd think it would be, and it's not as hard on the palate, but it's quite enjoyable. And you can understand why these kids like it, and they like it a lot. It's 15%. So an average wine is around about 11 or 12%. Yeah.
12 to 14.
No, not in
12 to
Australia.
14? No?
French wines were around 11, 12%
Yep.
because of the climatic conditions. It's a bit cooler over there, but Australia is hot.
Yeah.
So
Yep.
even the cool areas of Australia are hot.
Hot, yeah.
So you generally get wines around 12 and up,
Okay.
and they can go up to 15 and a half.
Wow. So what's the allure of this stuff, and who asks for it? What's your average client who buys this?
Oh, expats, British expats, mostly Scots and Irish.
Yep.
And now English. It's become one of the top drinks in England now, more recently. But originally it was the Scottish and the Irish, and they'd come in bawling their eyes out when they saw it on. We had a window display,
Yeah.
which we've kept for 16 years, and they'd come in crying because they hadn't seen it for 2 years, and bawling their eyes. I go, oh, I haven't seen this for ages. I've missed it. I've missed Buckfast, and they'd get it shipped over, but to have it here in Australia, they're just very happy.
And as we said, you guys are the sole distributor for Australia and New Zealand,
Australasia, yeah.
Australasia. That's amazing. It to our listeners or our viewers, go and seek it out. Go find it and try it. You'll be pleasantly surprised. Wow, that's amazing. And it's you've got all the hats and all the keyrings and stuff in your shop. It's just, and it's good because you're providing a service, as you say, for these expats. You know, it's like me with kiwi candy. You know, it's like, you've got
Chocolate fish.
or banana rail or whatever it is. You know, that's just unbelievable.
Or fish.
Fish chocolate.
We're going to do that. No, we're
Mate,
not gonna
you're a
do that.
Kiwi as well too. You can't
No, I'm a Victorian.
you can't take the piss. You were born in
He
New Zealand,
lived-
were you?
lived over
Oh, you
there.
just lived there.
Yeah.
Okay, so you're a pretend Kiwi for a little while. Did they kick you out? Oh, hey, talking about trends, we've seen recently, well, not recently, we're talking about the last 7-8 years, the trend in craft beer just go absolutely cocoa bananas. The market's saturated with the product. What's you've seen this trend happen. Explain to me, because you will know, when you first saw this thing start to explode, what were you thinking? What were you feeling? What was your gut? And what did you do?
It goes back to what the market drives, and you asked me how we stocked the shop, and we thought we were going to be a wine store, and then cider hit for a very small, probably a year, 6 months to a year, and then the craft beer movement happened to us in Victoria, and it exploded. And people couldn't get enough American. Like, New Zealand is 20 years ahead of Australia. Was 20 years ahead, and America was 50 years ahead of Australia in their craft beer movement. It's probably caught up in the last 5-10 years. It's probably caught up dramatically.
So when did it start happening in Australia? What year was it? Do you know?
The craft beer movement.
Craft beer.
Probably 12 years ago.
2009.
Yeah, about 2009. And yeah, it just exploded. And so our wine focus became beer focus. I still haven't taught a wine appreciation class. We used to do Thursday night beer appreciation. So all my language from wine appreciation education became beer focused, and similar language, colour, nose, palate, all that stuff. But
there's a lot of similarities in, like, drinks are drinks.
Yeah.
And so the things you're looking for in terms of the way it impacts when you first taste it, where it hits on your tongue, what it smells like.
And that's what we call the profile, don't we?
Follow across from wine to beer to spirits to lots of drinks. Did
you know what was happening when it was happening?
We learnt pretty quickly
Yeah,
to adapt. And that goes back to your question of how we've survived for that long. We've had to adapt.
But then
and
again,
change our focus.
that was a challenge as well, because it started slowly. It started with a group of enthusiasts and people who would seek out craft beer. So they'd seek out our shop. But when you're trying to run a business, it's different to when you're going out and trying different beers. It's like you've got to buy a case of beer.
Yep.
And if the people who come in are very small in number and they're looking for the latest thing, then you buy a case of beer and all of a sudden within a week it's not the latest thing.
It's changed.
So you're left with, maybe you might sell 6 or 8 out of that case. And then you're trying to manage what you're going to do with the rest of it because no one's coming in for that.
Yeah.
And then you've got to get some more beer.
Exactly.
And some more beer and some more beer. At one stage we had 300 or 400 beers on the shelves, and you're starting to get like slow movement and you have to turn over that stock.
Yeah.
So there were a lot less people who were interested in craft beer at the start.
Completely different now.
So it's completely different now.
Yeah. Well, as you're saying, that goes back to what you're talking about, management, and making sure that you're stocking or having to stock the stuff that needs to be there on the shelves to sell. You know, at that particular, and you're saying it's changing weekly, which is just good. It's probably slowed down a little bit more now, obviously.
No,
it's still evolving that quickly.
It's going quicker because people are trying different things like ice cream sours. They're trying all kinds of different ingredients in there, and in a way they're sort of muddying the market. It's like everybody's out there. Get a bit caught up in Doctor Who stuff, but it's like all of time and space is happening at once, and everybody's trying to get something out there into the market, and there's not a trend now. There's just a mass of stuff,
a glug of product. I often look at stuff and look at the label and go, why? You know, some of these concoctions.
Yep.
And as I said previously, I've gone full circle. I'm going back to a draft beer now because, you know, sometimes and the cost. Now, for our listeners, the cost of alcohol is relevant to the volume of alcohol. So if you're buying a craft beer that's 8, 9, 10%. I mean, some of these 4-packs are up to $40 now, and more, and it's due to the amount of alcohol in them.
The excise tax.
Yeah.
The government's.
Yep. So a lot of that's tax, exactly. Yeah, and that's any brewer will say, well, it is what it is, you know. But it makes it hard to sell more product up in that top echelon. But a lot of brewers now are just trying to get this big hoppy, creamy, and they're going bang, 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 bang. The alcohol volume goes up. Yeah. So yeah, it's the trends within the brewing craft beer industry
But it's like wineries. There are thousands of wineries in Australia, but they don't all make it onto the shelf. So a lot of them have to do mail order. A lot of them have to do those sort of small purchases through whatever means they can get onto a restaurant list or something. And the same with brewers. Like, there are so many brewers that are out there. If they don't have their own cellar door, their own premise, if they've made it through somebody, like you can do contract brewing, you can take your recipe along and someone will make it for you and can it for you and sell it. But if you haven't got your own sales outlet, it's hard to convince. Like, they might convince us to take a case and we'll buy it, and then our customers will either take it on or not. But more than likely they won't. They'll just try it and then they'll move on to the next thing.
Yep.
So for that person trying to run a brewery type operation, if they don't, they're going to have to constantly be searching somebody out to buy it, instead of, if they have their own cellar, not cellar door, but their own brewery.
Well, an example is that, probably not an example, but Ballistic in the news this week, Ballistic Brewing have gone into administration.
Wow.
Did you read about that?
No, I haven't.
I'm not sure whether they're an independent brewer or part of a conglomerate. I don't know. But as you say, to be independent, you've got to get your product out there. And as you say, if you don't have a cellar door like a lot of good breweries do, that's where they make their money. People coming in the door, having a pizza, doing the tasting paddles.
Yeah.
We talked about how somebody starts brewing beer, how they get into it. Now, you've done it yourselves.
Yeah.
How does it work? What's your foothold into the industry? How do you start? What do you do?
To get beer brewed.
To brew beer, to brew your own beer. You've got a recipe. Yep. What do you do now?
Yep, you can buy your own kit. You can go to a contract brewer.
So buying your own kit, you're talking about a brew house.
Yep.
Now, where do you start? How many litres? How big does your kit need to be to make it commercially viable?
Yeah, well, that's the thing. A lot of times it's not going to be commercially viable. You've got to, with a lot of businesses, you can be really small, you can be micro, or you can be max.
Yep.
The middle is the death for a lot of places.
So it's either one or the other. You stay independent and niche,
or you go
hard.
Yeah. Because if you're trying to get distribution for a moderate amount of product and stuff, it's a very hard place to be.
Your profits are just taken up by distribution fees, etc.
Yeah.
Now, you said contract brewers. Is that what you did with your label?
Yes.
Yep.
Yeah.
So you had the formula?
Yes, we'd done some work ourselves, because you can make small batch stuff, but you got to scale it up at some point. Mm-hmm. So if you make that, you develop your recipe, you refine it like we did with our customers, and then you take it to somebody else who can make it for you.
Did you use somebody local in Victoria?
Yeah, it's probably not a good story.
Isn't it? Did you not want to go down? No?
There are other things that can happen. I mean,
well,
the person we chose was not right for, I don't know if he's right for anything really, but he was...
okay, so you've learnt the hard way.
We went through an exercise of the learning curve.
Yep.
But...
so you wouldn't suggest it to anybody, or you'd suggest... you've got to start somewhere, don't you?
Yeah.
And
right. That happens in industry. It happens everywhere. You get burnt along the line, and you put it down to learning curve, and it's usually learning a degree in law.
Oh, did it have to
way
end up in the courts? No, it was.
We preempted it.
Okay,
He
right.
he made his way to the courts before we got to him.
Okay.
So
Oh, we won't go down that
no, we
route.
won't.
So you used an independent. You didn't use a very good independent, but the product. Did you get the product that you wanted?
Yes.
Yeah. Now the independents did the brewing. They did the canning, the labelling,
Well,
the packaging.
they did the brewing,
Yeah.
and they arranged the canning and the labelling through somebody else.
Yep.
So they outsourced that because that's how they worked as well.
Mm-hmm.
Because you can't. There's a lot of expense in a canning line. There's a lot of
Yeah.
expense. Each of these things has its own
Yep.
expense. So some people will just contract brew, and then once they're finished, you've scheduled in a mobile canner
Yep.
to come in and do
Canning and
canning
labelling.
or bottling. Yeah.
Yep. Okay. And percentage-wise for the finished product, what sort of margins? I mean, the example that you've got, are we talking 20, 30%, more or less,
For profit.
for profitability? How much? Everybody thinks that there's money in alcohol. Now, this is true, but it's not true.
That's right. There's money in alcohol for the federal government.
Okay. So you guys are just tax collectors.
Yeah,
Just,
pretty
yeah,
much.
That's it.
Yeah, yeah.
That's it.
But they say, like a bar, I mean, there's no money in food, there's money in alcohol. Is that still prevalent today? Is that still the
Well, just
the formula?
look on Chapel Street,
It
as we were
still
saying. Every empty premises becomes a bar, and there's no other services being offered anymore.
Yeah, but some of those are just fronts for other things, though,
Well,
aren't they?
we don't know about that,
No.
but there's very little food as well. So
Yeah.
there's a couple of food establishments, and a lot of them are very bar heavy, or they start out as restaurants and cafes, and then they become bars. So somebody's doing something where they're making money. We're not that way inclined. We sort of, as you know, our drinks are reasonably priced. Our cocktails are cheaper than anywhere, and that's because we do it for the love. No, we don't. Yeah, we do. It is a fun experience for us, and we don't believe in gouging people because that's not how we would want to be treated. So, yeah, we provide a pretty moderate service.
Yes, you do. You definitely do.
Moderately priced service. Yeah.
All right. This podcast is brought to you by Holy Shirt Australia. Holy Shirt Australia are 100% online. They're Australia's largest no minimum custom print and embroidery company. All their services are completed in-house, and they can deliver all orders promptly and professionally. They like to keep it simple and straightforward, so they offer cool stuff that can be custom printed or embroidered to your liking. They have an easy-to-use online designer to build your custom apparel from the comfort of your home or office. They offer pricing that reflects your individual order, and remember, they are no minimum on all their products. They deliver what the customer expects when they expect it. They've got over 1,500 products ready for you to custom print or embroider today, right now. So head to holyshirt.com.au for all your custom clothing requirements. I found some fun facts about alcohol online, so I'm just going to run a few past you. The first one here is 6 minutes is how long it takes for the brain to start to react to alcohol. Now, is that after my first sip, or is that after the first beer, after consuming that? What's your theory on that? You were talking about the training or the education.
Yeah, at our liquor record meetings, we're advised strongly that we're not to have a drunk on premises. It's one of the reasons that you can lose your licence, and yet you are intoxicated the minute you start drinking alcohol. So there's a very broad definition of what intoxicated is or what drunk is, and yet nobody's been able to define it into a set way, start to finish term where you are considered to be drunk on premises. So yeah, I'm not surprised that it's that short a time where you start to feel the effects of intoxication.
So when you think about, as you say, there's no exact science, because
No.
the thing is that if I'm 80 kgs
Yes.
and I've had a full meal,
Yes.
well, technically that alcohol is going to take a little bit longer to
That's
absorb. And if I'm drinking a 4% beer, or I'm drinking a 9%, premixed drink,
Yes.
or a shot of tequila.
Or a sparkling wine.
Sparkling wines, that's why ladies love that stuff, isn't it?
Yeah, it goes through you a lot faster. And if you're-
Goes through you? Or
it goes in.
it affects
It
you?
affects you a lot quicker.
Carbonation.
Yeah.
Because that you were explaining about that. Can you explain to our listeners about carbonation, please, and why?
Well, it's just a transmission device. So because still wine, it goes in your stomach and whatever. But a sparkling wine almost goes through your bloodstream. It goes quicker into your bloodstream.
Faster, yeah.
It's absorbed, and it's because of the carbonation.
Because of the carbonation.
Yeah.
Would that be the same for fizzy drinks with the transmission of sugar into your bloodstream? Is that why they're carbonated? Would that be the same principle?
Possibly. Yeah.
Possibly. We're going to have to do the science on that and see what the thing is. Okay, so 67.5% is the amount of alcohol content in the strongest beer in the world. Would you agree with that, Rob? Isn't there? Is that true? Because I think there's a higher one, isn't there?
We've got a 120 in the shop, haven't we? How much is that one?
No, that's the price.
That's the price, sorry.
Is that 120?
65%.
Have you got a bottle of beer for $120?
Yeah, we
Please
do.
explain.
It was 65% alcohol.
Yeah, which is up there with what they're talking about.
Yeah. And it's all incremental. They're pushing the boundaries of that because it's not natural. They use some sort of way of getting it down, because yeast will die at about no more than 20%. You couldn't get a yeast that'll live past 20% in a alcohol. It makes its own alcohol environment.
Yep.
And so then it kills itself, basically. So what they do is they take the drink, and then they take it away and they put it into a freezer, and then they scoop off the frozen water from the top, and the alcohol's not freezing
Yep.
as much. And then it gradually goes down in temperature, and every time it goes down, it concentrates the alcohol even more.
Wow.
So that's what they're doing. They're freeze distilling.
Yep.
So it's called freeze distilling. And it's an old German way of increasing the alcohol by volume, is to freeze a bit of it and take away some of the water, and then you're left with a
Yeah. I
more
get it.
alcoholic product.
So when does a beer stop being a beer?
Well,
Is it?
it's
Is
still
it?
a beer.
It's,
I mean,
it's
you've-
still
you've-
technically a
you've
beer
fermented it
because of the
and-
process.
Yeah, it's not a spirit because you haven't used a distillation.
Yes.
You've used freezing, which
Okay. So that's just how you get the high alcohol.
Concentrating, yeah.
That's amazing process. Did you know that 1 in 5 top 100 country music songs refer to alcohol?
Wow.
can believe
and
that.
and
That
their,
and
their dog and their lover gone. And
the ute and the
Well, it's classic Australian, isn't it? A ute, a dog,
Yeah.
a guitar, a hat.
broken relationship.
Yeah. Well, that's a great fun fact. Did you know that the founder of Alcoholics Anonymous, Bill W., demanded alcohol during his final years?
Are you serious?
I shit you not. It's right here. It's right here on the interweb.
Wow.
That's fair enough.
So it
Man.
drove him to drink.
Can you imagine his internal struggle through all of that?
Wow.
Now, I'm not making light of alcoholics or
Yeah,
Alcoholics
no.
Anonymous. I mean, it's obviously served a great purpose. The big internal debate I have is what defines an alcoholic. So, if I'm drinking on a regular basis and I can't not drink, does that make me an alcoholic, or does it just make me responsible because I'm not going out and getting shit-faced every night?
High functioning? I don't know. It's very, very interesting question.
There's not one we concern ourselves with.
It's not one
In
that
Chapel
yourself,
Street Cellars. No.
not yourself personally, but as you say, as responsible bar owners, you've got a moral obligation. I mean, you don't know what happens behind closed doors.
No.
But you can, I mean, you guys see from the inside out the drinking culture.
Yes.
A lot of people don't know what the drinking culture, and I'll tell you what, the drinking culture I grew up with in NZ was just going out and getting shit-faced at the weekend.
Yep.
Didn't drink during the week.
Yep.
Didn't have alcohol in the house. And that was how I grew up. And I think that's very similar to the Australian youth drinking culture. Probably not now, as you said previously. There's a lot of youth that don't touch it, or they're going with the no alcohol stuff. And they're probably going with the no alcohol stuff because they want to be cool, or they don't want to stand out from the crowd and be the odd ones out.
There's a lot of peer pressure, you'd imagine.
Well, it's always been that way, and I don't think it's ever going to change. No. I don't think it's ever changed. But once again, and I've discussed it with Mav. I mean, Mav's from an Italian background, which drinking is part of their culture with meals and stuff. So he's always been around it, and I think youth that are shielded from it, it makes them want to do it or experiment it more.
Yes.
So it's that balance that you've got to create with the youth. It's about education, but it's also about making sure that you nurture them, because they're either going to do it or they're not.
Yeah.
I mean, some youth may say, look, for whatever reason, I don't want to touch it, which is great. That would be awesome for a lot of our youth.
But it's learning control. It's like with everything.
Exactly.
You start slow and it's part of your life. It's better than if it's suddenly thrust upon you, and then the alcohol has its own effect on you, and then the alcohol takes over you rather than you controlling what you put in your body.
And it's understanding, like I did when I grew up, understanding what does what to me, and at what point do you stop. Sometimes as youth you don't understand until it's gone too far, as you say, with those drinks that jump up and hit you in the back of the head.
Tequila.
Exactly. Well, I mean, once again, we've already said you don't know until you know, but I think from my point of view as a father, it's about education. It's about education and making sure that my son has what he needs to go forward. And as I've said to him, let his mates do the stupid shit. I constantly tell him, let them do the stupid shit and have your phone ready on record. Because that's...
You can put it on YouTube.
TikTok. I'm going to say,
TikTok,
let your friends be TikTok sensations. Sensations. Milkshakes originally contained alcohol. So we're talking the old milk bars, and I presume that would be American, where they used to drop alcohol in milkshakes. Is that something that you're familiar with?
No, but I know that Coke was the real thing because it contained cocaine. So
wow. Why can't we bring the old days back?
I didn't know about the milkshake. That's amazing.
Wow. There are approximately 49 million bubbles in a bottle of champagne. How do they gauge that?
How do they count them?
Exactly. How do they know?
Well, the sign of a good quality champagne is the smaller bubbles. So,
see, we didn't know that.
yeah.
If
it's bigger bubbles, it's less quality.
Okay, now tell me the quality of a champagne. How does that work?
Well, smaller bubbles, but having said that, a lot of function venues will get glasses that have got a little hole drilled in the bottom of the glass, and that will start bubbling, so it looks like there's more bubbles. That was an old party trick that they used to do years ago. I don't think it's done anymore.
Sounds like a lot of hard work, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does. Well, you'd buy a glass with like a tiny little hole drilled in the bottom of the glass, on the inside, of course.
Yep.
So it just forms a bubble. A really tight bead. It's called the bubbling at the top. That's how you define a really nice a good champagne. A tight small bead.
What about the grapes? Because we're talking about a specific grape to make a champagne,
usually
or is it a byproduct of something
Chardonnay,
else?
Pinot Noir, and Pinot Meunier. They're the three grapes that go into nearly all champagnes you see. So there's three grapes. Two of them happen to be red.
Really?
So, yeah. So that's another course for another day. That's a whole process. But, yeah, that's fascinating in itself. There was a champagne in Australia called Trilogy, and that's got all three. generally a lot of them now will only have the Pinot Noir and the Chardonnay.
And you're saying that the alcohol content, is the alcohol content higher in a champagne?
No.
No?
It's
as
still
you
a
say, it's
table
just those.
wine.
So you're saying those carbonated bubbles
Will go
just
through,
transfer.
yeah.
That's why
Into your
it
bloodstream.
just goes straight to your
Yeah.
head. Oh my God, I've had
Yeah.
one champagne.
And if you're a smaller petite girl, then it will go into your bloodstream a lot faster as well.
Wow.
Yeah. So girls, and I tell girls this all the time. It's something that they just did not know that to be wary of. Yeah.
Yep. My wife's petite.
Yes.
A gin and tonic will glow under a UV light because tonic contains quinines.
Quinine,
What are quinines?
Quinine.
Quinine.
It's a herb that's put into tonic.
In a bark.
A bark. Yeah.
Oh, it's actually in the tonic, not the gin.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's the bark of a tree.
Yeah. So
Quinine.
if you mix up your drinks, you just hold it up to the light and you go, oh, that's the tonic, gin and tonic, that's the vodka.
So because they were saying that if it glows under the light,
Blue.
it's a higher quality product or less. It's just a tonic. It's got nothing to do with the
No.
gin. Okay, I've been misled all this
Is
time.
it the gin? No, it's not the gin, it's just the tonic.
This is interesting. One of the currencies in early colonial Australia was rum.
Yes.
So New South Wales, I did not know this.
Yes.
New South Wales Corps officers brought up all the imported rum and established a monopoly on its trade, which is the same as a lot of countries have done on a lot of products. When Governor William Blythe attempted to shut it down, he was deposed in Australia's first and only military coup. I did not know that.
Rum rebellion.
That exactly.
Rebellion.
Wow.
Yep.
It would later be called the Rum Rebellion. This is fascinating, is it not? All over alcohol.
Yeah.
Wow. Was it good rum? Do we know?
Don't know.
I mean, have you ever had a bad rum?
But it depends, like when they made it, they made it themselves. I don't think they really did. They would have brought it over from from Barbados or one of the islands that they'd taken over as bloody British.
Who were the predominant rum makers, do you know, in history? The history of rum? Do we have that?
Would be
Do we know?
French and French possibly, or the
No, I don't know.
We're going to have to research that. Mav, can
I
you
know
do
that
me a
was
favour? Can you Google search who produced rum initially or first? Who was the rum makers?
But that's interesting that table wines are relatively new. Like they started, all wines in Australia before the 60s were fortifieds. So table wines became a new thing. They were like a modern Australian thing
So table wines we're saying that they're lower in alcohol and a little
yeah.
bit more benign.
Yeah.
Because fortified wines and cognacs and stuff are all higher. And
Very
cognacs
high.
are a different
Yeah.
category again.
Yeah.
This brings me to the next one, that red wines have higher alcohol content than white wines. Yes or no? Do we agree or disagree
Maybe generally,
with that?
but not
Yeah.
necessarily. What do you think? I don't know.
Yeah, I'd say so.
You'd agree?
Yeah.
Yep. Which do you prefer, Rob? Red or white?
I drink everything. Well, I don't actually drink anymore, but everything tastes good. It's a matter of
You know the beauty about that statement, I don't drink anymore? That we've had Christmas drinks together.
Yeah.
You guys go out of your way to have a drink with us.
Yeah.
And I really appreciate that. That's amazing.
A taste, a sip.
And you do that fantastic alcohol gelato, which we tried at the weekend.
oh yeah,
Unbelievable.
Yeah.
Unbelievable. You guys are just crazy inventors.
Oh, Rob's a mad scientist.
You will need around 600 grapes to make a bottle of red wine.
Wow.
That's a lot of grapes.
Yes.
It's a lot of grapes. If you're thinking about how many grapes are on a bunch,
Yeah.
on a vine, that's a
600.
lot of those.
Wow.
It's a lot of hard work.
Yeah.
Have you ever done harvest, you guys?
Yeah.
Yeah?
Joanne
Yeah.
did as part of her course.
Yeah.
Two of them.
Two. Yeah.
2 harvests.
Yep.
And harvest in Australia is generally around March, April.
Yeah.
Yep.
Different for different regions. Whether it's a cool climate, it'll be a little bit later, or if it's a hot climate, it'll be earlier.
or twice in
or
Queensland.
twice in Queensland.
really?
Yeah. They get two vintages. Yeah.
So Victoria, from where we are,
Yeah.
to our listeners, generally a bit of a colder climate, and depending on which part of Victoria.
Yeah,
Cool to
Where's
cold.
where's most of the wine being produced, or the most of the grapes being produced in Victoria? Which areas?
No, it's all across.
It's just all across.
It's all across. It goes all the way from Gippsland through to basically where the Barossa, the Robe, and
Right over to the border with South Australia,
Yeah.
which is going to be hotter.
yeah,
That's the
all
thing
the way
about-
all the way up to Mildura,
Yeah.
all the way down to Mornington.
Yep. And there's a big scope of temperature between north, south, east, west, isn't there?
Yeah.
Yep.
It's a big place.
Different styles of wine that grow particularly well in different areas, regions.
And cooler regions are going to produce better what grapes?
Generally better all grapes because they're slow ripening. If they can grow in that region, or if the soils are conducive to that grape, anything.
It's lighter reds. It's lighter and white.
Those Shirazes and Pinots and Rosés, yeah?
Yeah, but the Shirazes take on more of a peppery sort of.
Okay, and why is that?
Just that's the type of grape that grows.
Okay. So we've got, in
better.
Victoria, we're growing a gamut of
Yeah,
grape varieties.
as well. Yeah,
Are we the biggest wine producing region in Australia? Or is it Barossa? Is it South Australia?
probably South Australia, but I mean, there's a fair bit comes out of WA.
New South Wales.
New South Wales does quite a bit.
Yep.
And then
Well, what do you got? You got Hunter Valley. Is
Hunter
that-
Valley.
Yeah. Great
Mudgee,
destinations.
Orange.
it's
Yeah.
a destination. Yeah, it's-
Great destinations.
Orange is one of the oldest regions in Australia. One of the
Mudgee.
first regions. Mudgee.
And there's
Dutch-
a Canberra
the Dutch
district, which
settled.
is a cool climate.
And as you know, I'm from Hawke's Bay, one of the great grape growing and wine producing regions in New Zealand. It was actually, it was sad, but in the long run, probably not so much. So there was a national drag strip in an area of Hawke's Bay, and it was world quality, top class drag strip. We had a lot of records broken there, and they ripped it up and turned it into vineyards because of the gravelly area that it was, and it was
Soils,
just worth more as wines than
Wine
what it was
region.
ever a drag strip. I actually won a motorcycle national drag
Oh, wow.
on that drag strip. So yeah, I drive past the vineyards when I go home and reminisce about that. But
Curse
that's
them.
enough about me. Did you know that vodka is the world's most popular alcohol, with approximately 5 billion litres consumed per year?
Wow.
Do we put that down to all the models that are trying not to put on weight? Because isn't that the drink of the stars,
The
vodka?
low alcohol.
And of course the
low-
Ruskies.
Yeah.
We won't go down that. We're not going to go down that route. Wow. There is 90 psi of pressure in a bottle of champagne. We're going back to the champagne. Once again,
Scary stuff.
that's why it goes pop.
And that's why they've designed the bottles to withstand the pressure.
Yeah,
the
'cause they're a
bottles are
thick-
different. They've got a punt, so an area underneath
bottom.
that comes up.
So that dip,
Yeah.
That
but that's
actually-
prominent in other wine bottles as well too, because that's where the waiter puts his thumb in it
Yeah.
when he pours it, or is it just more pronounced in the champagne bottle?
That's become a gimmick. Yeah, it's more pronounced. It has to be in the champagne bottle so the bottom doesn't blow out.
Right.
So it has to be thicker and stronger. I think, and it's also a classier, like the tall French style bottles with the bigger punt. That's become more of a fancy marketing thing.
Okay.
But the reason, like that PSI that you mentioned, that's the reason why you can cut the top off with a sabre. Because
Right.
people think it's a great party trick, but all you have to do is really tap it,
And it's gonna
and it's going to blow off.
and it's gonna go.
As soon as
Yeah.
you make any sort of
Do they normally shake it before that, or is it just the
Some people
internal
do,
pressure?
Some people do, but if you tap it just gently, it'll just come off quite easily.
Just wondering what the stats are on eye injuries with
You've
with
got to aim
champagne
it
corks.
away. Yeah.
Yeah, there's a lot of YouTube videos with stuff going bad with a champagne bottle. Champagne bottle. Well, hey, I think we've done a pretty good job here of trying to educate our listeners about alcohol and what you guys do.
Yep.
I hope we can make this a regular occurrence because
like that.
you're more than welcome. You guys have got a lot of knowledge. I've got a lot of questions. I think we've covered some good topics here today. Once again, for our listeners and our viewers that don't know, Chapel Street Cellars, it's at the Windsor end of Chapel Street.
Yep.
What number are we talking? If you're going to Google it, do you know the shop number?
Yep, 89 Chapel Street.
89 Chapel Street,
Yeah.
Windsor?
Yes,
Exactly, and you're open most days?
every day.
Every day?
Yeah,
From 10...
from 4ish.
Yes.
3:30 till close. We're licensed till 1 in the morning.
Perfect.
If customers are there, we're there. Yes, and
So you guys do everything. You've got food, you've got cheese boards, you've got gelato, you've got a beer garden, you've got a chock-a-block shop full of anything and everything.
Yep.
It's a great environment. Come, get a wine, get a beer, sit out front, watch the
it's the parade.
the show down Chapel Street.
I'll go into the TARDIS
Yep.
and
And be anonymous.
Exactly.
backyard.
That's right. Go out back and maybe meet some celebrities. Just don't bother them.
Don't bother them.
Yeah, exactly. Hey, once again, guys, thank you very much. I really
you.
appreciate it. I do hope you come back.
Yep.
That's a wrap, man. Thanks.
Yeah, thank you for tuning in and for your time. You know the vibe, I'm steady living until I die. It's a loose state of mind and we showed you that. Keep it authentic and real, I hope you coming back. Hey, make sure that you subscribe, cause we got it popping all the time and it's going down. If you wanna elevate, wanna live a better life, keep it locked here. You know it's a loose state of mind, let's go.